as a cinematographer, in terms of the language that you see things in, so say like a musician kind of understands how to put notes together, what is that language in your head, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think actually, there's a language, but it's funny the way I kind of talk about it, and I'm going to have to make sense of this as I say it, but the way I kind of tend to talk about it with directors is we try to find a language for the film. Okay. It's like each film has its own vocabulary or its own way of seeing the world. So we kind of, by talking about the film and asking what its themes are and kind of thinking about the characters and just having a kind of a gut feeling impression about the film, you start to kind of have images in your head about what you think the film might look like. And I know that, like, as I was saying to you, I tend to go with the director to like somewhere where there's a really big collection of photography. Like we go to maybe to the National Film School and open up all the photography books there for an entire day and just keep pulling out pictures and looking at things, and kind of you look at a picture and go, that looks like a picture from the film. Or not, and it usually won't be the whole picture, it'll just be the camera angle or the way a person's head is cut off in the frame, or the way you're seen through a window, or the way, so it'll be something in it that you just kind of on a gut level, that feels like it, and you know the script well, or if it's a documentary, you know the vibe of what you're doing. So you kind of start to build this collage of images that you feel are kind of representative of the film.
And will you have like an actual kind of board of
images? I mean, that's the ideal scenario, is to do that. And what I kind of do is, I mean, I'll kind of, like with Terry, we kind of did it really thematically. We kind of gathered 4 folders of images that we kind of felt were representative of different themes that we thought were in the film. So like one of them might have been alienation, or one of them, because there's a lot of alienation, say in Patrick's Day, how Patrick might feel. So we kind of started gathering photos that we felt were kind of getting to that. And we had to kind of say 4 different things that we were looking for, and we kind of built folders of those.
So is it kind of all, it's all to do with kind of identifying the quality of it, is that?
Yeah, there's kind of an invisible quality that you kind of start off with, and then your job, probably a part of your job, is to try and make that a little bit clearer so that you can actually have a shorthand on set, so that, like for example, we just did these kids films, and we shot the entire film, all the films, on about 2 lenses. We shot on wide lenses, and we shot kind of low angle, and the low angle was motivated mostly by just because we wanted to see the world through the kids' eyes, so that we put the camera almost always at our lead actor's eye height. So there's kind of weird up angles of adults and stuff, and that kind of just felt like, when you're a kid, that's how you see the world, so let's kind of put the film from the kid's point of view. And so but that might be one choice, and then you have another choice about like the color palette that you'll use, and that's a conversation with the production designer and with post-production in terms of how you're going to grade the film. So there's like about, say, 10 different distinct areas, and you kind of work on each of them. So like what lenses you use, what type, where you place the camera, how you relate people to each other in the space in terms of the mise-en-scène. Like there's so many different things, but basically you try and take each of those, and you have a decision or an attitude to each of those, and then hopefully when they all come together, then you really start seeing the film blossom, And hopefully you look at any shot from the film and go, oh yeah, that's a shot from that film.
And how long kind of in advance of shooting does that happen, or does that begin?
Well, ideally ages in advance. But I mean, I did 3 feature films back to back over the summer, and we were just talking about them, 3 kids Norwegian feature films called Gratas, which is like Little Grey Fergie, which is kind of a Herbie film, except about a little tract that comes to life on a farm. And with those 3 feature films, we had 4 weeks each to shoot them, so that's 12 weeks of shooting. But for the entire 12 weeks of shooting, we had 3 weeks of prep. I had 3 weeks of prep with the director, which is no time at all. So it was really hard to try and you know, get everything lined up right. Now it helped that they were 3 films that were, you know, pretty much in the same area and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But still, it was mammoth amount of work to try and do in that amount of time.
And does that just come down to budgets?
Yeah, I mean, I think budget's a big part to do with it. I think it's, and then also, I mean, the financing of films is a really tricky business that I've only kind of been involved in once or twice. And I just know that, like, sometimes you're waiting for a film, and then something gets a green light and you just have to go. And often there's kind of time constraints in that. I mean, I think it was maybe quite late when we found out we were going to get the total green light, and it was absolutely sure that it was happening. But then it was getting into the summer, and you want to shoot 12 weeks of summer, so you can't delay the shoot because you're going to start losing light in the evenings. And so you've got those kind of practical constraints. So as a producer, you're always trying to dance, you know, into the
chicken and eggs.
Exactly. Exactly. So we were kind of a bit of a victim of that, but it was fine anyway. You know.
And was that your first time the
gratis? Yeah.
Was that your first time directing on that scale on your own?
Well, it was the cinematography I was doing on that one.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it was the cinematography. Okay. So there was there was a director on board already. I came on and I shot I shot those films. Yeah, but they were quite big scale, you know.
And what, as a cinematographer, what do you think your strengths are?
Well, I think I come from a background of documentary, so I'm quite free flowing, and I'll trust my instincts, and I'll look for, you know, I think what happens is you plan, and then you get onto set and you throw the plan away. Like, I think when it's really good, then you don't throw it away, but you go into it with it in your back pocket, and you kind of are quite free because you've got a plan. But you're free to improvise or react to the situation or react to the light or you know, so that you can actually, because really what you're trying to do is try and capture some sort of magic, and you have to be quite free to do that. You can't go in with your rigid plan saying he's definitely going to stand there and she's definitely going to stand there and they're definitely going to, you know, because the actors might come up with something on the day, a big storm cloud might come overhead, you know, there's so many contingencies that you can't control, that actually you can either fight them, which is probably often a losing battle, or you can say, okay, so there's a massive storm cloud, how can we use the massive storm cloud to make one other scene great, or to make this scene great, or to, you know, is there anything we can do, you know, so trying to work within what happens. I think that's probably the strongest thing.
And what then doesn't come as easily to you, or what do you have to be aware about yourself that maybe? Yeah,
I mean, I guess just the technical side, like the technical side is so big and vast, that I feel like I'm always playing catch up on that. I mean, you know, like, and it's probably just I haven't done as much of it as well, I'd say, so it's kind of a lack of experience of it.
Just in terms of like...
Well, in terms of like really big projects with CGI or something like that, you know, I'd have done elements of that, but I haven't done massive amounts of that. There's a project that's coming up now that's a little bit daunting, that's probably going to happen next year, and that's a lot of CGI with ghosts and all this kind of stuff. So now I've just done a ghost film, a short, so I have a pretty good handle on how I want to do that. But that was just done with compositing and stuff. It wasn't, I guess, sorry about that. Yeah, I guess you. Yeah, it always seems like it's a really daunting thing, and then actually when you're doing it, it's not quite as bad. But I'm scared by it, and I suppose my fear is the worst thing. You know.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So how has your approach? So from when you first started out, how has your approach to what you do changed or evolved, or is there
I suppose as you go on, you get better at relying on the people around you. when you're starting out, when I started out, it's not that you don't tend to trust anybody, but you think you do it all yourself, and you think I know where I want to, like, even like on the smaller budget stuff that I started out on, it was so small that I was the one who placed all the lights. And then as it moves on, you can't do it, and B, there's people who are much better at doing it than you. So you just need to start leaning on your team around you, and actually as you go on, you find that you've got such an experienced team. You can, that people are really, really good at what they do, and when you start getting those people around you, then you start being able to lean on them really heavily. And I think that's been the biggest journey for me, and finding that actually by leaning on them you can do way more, and they're really supremely talented at what they do. I'm talking about gaffers and grips and sparks and stuff. Like, I work with Ado Gallagher, who's really good at a lot, and Paul Sand, who's a really good grip. And when you work with guys who are really at the top of their game in those departments, then you really get an appreciation of what they can bring to what you do. So you can just focus on
your and are they people that you've kind of been working with now for a while?
Yeah, I mean, Ado I've been working with for a long time, and Paul, I just did 3 feature films with him, for example, but it was a big kind of learning curve, because those guys bring so much experience themselves that, like, you might have an idea what you want to do, but they probably have a better idea how to do it, because they've got so much experience, and they've got so much know-how, and they know their weapons, they know their tools really well, so they know the limitations better than I would. I'd be like, I want the camera to go here and swing around there, and Paul might suggest, okay, well, I know you're looking for that, but maybe what about this? And it would take maybe a quarter of the time to get a shot that's just as good, if not better,
But I suppose that's inherent to everything, or that's the trick of everything, that you put your ideas out and you hear somebody else, and then you meet in the middle at some point. Has your idea of, and I know kind of you took a circuitous route maybe into this, but has your idea of what success is, and I use that term in a very loose way, changed? Or do you start out with particular ideas about what you think your career should be, and then does your experience change that?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I didn't even know what cinematography was when I started out. So I only thought about writing and directing, and now I'm much more interested in making good films. So, and I find that there's a part of me that there's a part of me that wants to write and direct, and there's a part of me that wants to do cinematography, and if I can get both of those, then that's rock and roll. It's really nice. But I'm trying to answer your question specifically now here. So, just repeat it to me again. That it was like success.
Yeah.
How you define success? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have. I suppose when I started out, success was just getting to make films, and getting to do anything. And then now, as I've come on, and got to work on bigger projects, it's really come back again to I guess, you really just want to be working on quality projects that you care about.
And is this, because I think sometimes we think, I'll do that thing and then everything will change and I'll get to this point.
Yeah.
Is that...
Well, no, I for quite a bit of my career, I turned away from stuff because, now I don't know whether this was wise or not wise, but I avoided work that I didn't think was going to be really high quality because I didn't want to be associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it meant that I actually scraped along financially for quite a while because I was turning down things that could have paid me better, but I was only trying to get associated with what I thought was really good stuff, and getting to and primarily targeting feature films. So I really wasn't much interested in doing anything else. I did short films, but I saw them and I saw them as I really loved doing them, but I was in it for feature films. That's kind of how I saw it, because especially after a while you realise you can never make any money from short films, and you need to make feature films to make a living. And feature films you can really pour yourself into them because they take a lot of time, and you've got some more financial resources, and you've got the team around you who can do it all and stuff. So I kind of turned away from that other stuff because my long-term goal was, I was like, this is too small of an industry. If you get categorized as a guy who shoots this type of stuff that I didn't want to get associated with, then I thought, I'm going to be 10 years shooting that stuff, and that's what I'll be seen as doing. And it's very hard to change people's perception of you. I think because the industry is so small. So I kind of had it in my head that I'm going to be seen as the person who does this stuff. And then anytime I got an offer to do that stuff, I took it, no matter how it paid. And then eventually it started paying better, and I started getting more of it.
And was there kind of were there particular turning points then along that way that made that easier?
Turning points, yeah. I mean, it's kind of feast or famine. I mean, like this year has been incredibly fast for me because I ended up shooting 5 feature films, which is a lot, and pickups on another one. So, but you know, that's quite a lot of shooting. So I was shooting almost all year long, or preparing or doing post on things. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like it. The real tricky one is to do the first one, and to do it well, because for me, my first feature film was His and Hers, and that was a documentary. So it was hard to get that, but I worked with Ken before, and Kate and Andrew, so we kind of had an understanding. And when we did that film together, and that did really well, it was like, okay, so I've now made a feature film, and it felt like, okay, there's the legitimate post in your career.
Yeah.
But then it took a long time before I got my first feature film drama, because it takes a lot for somebody to trust you with a drama feature film if you haven't done one. So my first drama feature film was Patrick's Day, and that wasn't that long ago.
And how did that come about?
That came about actually really oddly, because I was at a writing program with a film I'm working on called 6 Hours, that I'm the writer-director of, and Terry McMahon and Tim Palmer were there with another project that they were working on, and it was kind of a residence. So we stayed in this place for like 4 or 5 days, and we worked on each other's scripts, and we had really good script advisors from 2 from the States, and 1 from the UK and 1 from Ireland, and they came on board and they gave us advice on our scripts. And Terry, at the time, I chatted with him and with Tim over the course of those few days, and we got on really well, and they knew His and Hers, and they liked the short films that I had shot. They'd seen those. So then, you know, sometime later they just got in touch with me and said, look, we're going to shoot this film. At the time it was called Simple Simon, and they're like, we're going to we were talking about it between us, and the way they put it was like they both had one person in mind to shoot it, and it was me. And I was going, okay, well, that's really nice. And I wasn't sure where they conjured it from, but it was really nice. I think we just had a good energy together, and I think they trusted that, and they liked what I did before. So it was a really good break for me, because the script was, when I read the script, I was like, shit, this is amazing. It's a really great script. And then Terry's so good with actors, and such a you know, challenging guy to collaborate with. He's great. You know, he really knows what he's trying to do, and pushes and pushes and pushes, and never stops pushing. So yeah, that was a really big moment to try and get to shoot Patrick's Day.
And is there a difference, just in terms of working as a cinematographer, is there a difference between shooting a documentary and a feature in your approach, or in?
Yeah, I mean, because in a documentary you really have no idea what's happening. I mean, essentially. There's no structure. Because you're kind of inventing the structure on the fly, and it depends on the documentary. I mean, now, having said that, Ken is a supremely organised guy, and really knows what he's doing as well. So when we went to shoot His and Hers, it wasn't like, oh, let's go out and catch something. It was like we knew what we were really trying to do. So that film is actually really composed in terms of the cinematography. It's very still. The camera actually never moves for the whole film. And it's done with very few shots. So, and we were shooting on film, so we had to be very specific about what we were shooting. We had to know exactly what we were trying to get in the can. So it was very disciplined in that respect. But and we were changing locations twice a day for 4 months, you know, to try and get all the footage we needed. Now, when you're a cinematographer on a feature film drama, like that film was made essentially with 4 or 5 people, his and hers.
His and hers.
Yeah. Now, when you're on a feature film drama, you've got this, what I call the machine. And sometimes it can be your enemy and sometimes it can be your friend, and the trick is to try and make it your friend and make it work for you. And the machine is like this thing that, like, if you're shooting a scene here in this room and you want to go 100 meters over there to shoot another shot, if you're 4 people, you pick up the camera, you run over there and you start filming. Now, if you've got a crew of 60, it's not that simple. It takes a lot of coordination and it takes preparation. Everybody needs to know what's happening and everybody needs to be on game. And actually what needs to happen is, probably because it's a much bigger thing, you need to have your lighting guys ahead of you and they have to have lit the scene or pre-lit the scene. So the level of organization that's required is different. So I wouldn't say one is necessarily harder than the other, but it's just organizationally it's a bigger animal.
Can that be challenging then, say, for somebody, because I mean, it's brilliant, I suppose, if you go to a level where you have those resources, but if you're kind of coming from independent film too, was it Danny Boyle who said that when he went from whatever film he did before The Beach,
okay,
and he felt The Beach just didn't work because suddenly he had this machine,
yeah,
and there wasn't a freedom that
yeah.
is that up to you, kind of how you navigate that, if you like?
I think it is. I mean, I think the production itself will come kind of preloaded a little bit. Like you'll come on board, and the producers, in my experience, the producers that I've worked with have been so experienced that they come on board knowing you're probably going to need this many lighting guys, you're probably going to need this size of a grip kit and these number of grips, and so they kind of have an idea of how big of a film it is. So I've walked onto films where I've just gone, I remember I was shooting a test for a film, and I looked over and I saw there was all these trucks, and I was like, oh, they're making a really big film here as well as us doing our tests. And then somebody took the camera off me and went into one of the trucks, and I was going, oh shit, there are trucks. And there was like 6 of them. And I was going, oh my God, that's all with us. Okay. And that was really daunting for me, because I was like, oh my God, all those, like, it's just more people and more stuff. But it's kind of when you haven't been on, because I was always the cinematographer on shoots that I was on. So I was never like, most people kind of train their way up in other departments, and then they've kind of been on the big sets, and then they get to shoot stuff and they climb it. But I was just shooting all the time, so I was on smaller, and then getting gradually bigger. So the biggest sets I've been on usually are the ones where I'm shooting. So it was daunting for me to walk on and go, oh God, all those 6 trucks is full of stuff that I'm supposed to use. It's like, and I'm used to having like out of the back of a van. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was kind of funny. But I mean, it's just more stuff, and it gives you more freedom. It does. But it is. If you're not careful, the cart can lead the horse. And I think, like, when I got a mentor through a UK program called Guiding Lights, and my mentor was Lone Sherfick, and she comes from the Dogma School of Filmmaking. And one of the reasons I really wanted Lona was because she came from that school, and I think what they do is amazing. And what they did at the time when they set that up was that, like, it was kind of the spirit of, look, the film comes first, and the film, and because now, I mean, you only have to go and watch Avengers Age of Ultron or something, and you'll see that, like, the spectacular of it can take over from what's happening in the film, so that the kind of the eye candy, the virtuosity of the filmmaking can become more important than the actual integrity of the filmmaking. And I think it's really easy as you go to bigger films that like what you do is you say that can take over. Like even when we were doing this film Gratas, we had long talks about how much CGI we'd use. Now, I'm in favour of CGI, but I just think if you can, I just because I'm old school, I'm like, if you can do it in camera and it looks good, go with that. Like, and it's really funny to see the new Star Wars coming back doing that, because we were going to CGI the eyes of Gratas, and in the end we found a solution where we were able to do it all in camera, and it's just so alive. Like basically when you're filming it and the kid is acting with this tractor, the eyes are completely responding to the kid, and it's just so good.
And
it's
how do you do that?
Well, we set up radio controlled eyes, so the remote control eyes, and we got them set up and they move in 4 directions, and we had lights put inside them so they could turn on and off the lights.
So, like, are the eyes moving as the kid is talking?
As the kid is talking, yeah. So the tractor is remote control, which was always going to be the case. But what we thought was we'd have eyes, and then we just animate the eyes in post.
Okay.
But I was like, look, if we can do this in camera, let's do it in camera. So we kind of put a lot of effort in and did a lot of tests, and we found that, like, even though we did a lot of time, we managed to get it working. And hopefully, the film seems to be doing quite well now. So
is there somebody literally like?
There's literally a person operating, and I'm going, look a little bit higher, look a little bit to the left. Okay, that's perfect. That's your eye line for him in the close, and we're doing close-ups of a tractor, and we had to get somebody to remote control the eyes, and they're not remote control, and they're an actor, because you're a puppeteer,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And it was like this girl Hazel Cullen, who was actually in charge of the vehicles on set, because we didn't know how much we were going to rely on this. So she was like in charge of the vehicles. So when it was a remote control vehicle, well, she was in charge of that. Okay, by the way, the eyes are also remote control. Here's the remote control for it. So she had to take on the responsibility of animating the eyes of this vehicle. And in fairness to her, she nailed it. She was amazing. She really, really was brilliant, So it was great.
That's really good.
Yeah, but it's really nice. But that's the thing of like, trying not to let the machine take over, because it can. And I think Dogma was like, the actors come first. You're not allowed to set up any lights. You're only allowed to use lights that are in the location, practical lights. So it's the performance, the story, the actors, all that comes before the camera, because what happens often on set, or what can easily happen, is that everything's waiting for camera, because the camera side of filmmaking is so big and so gargantuan that it's slow moving. And if you're not careful, it can slow down the whole process, or it can just be so domineering that the actors are waiting, and then okay, now we're all ready. Okay, walk on, say your line. Okay, now get off, and we change everything. And now so the actors aren't acting all the time, whereas Dogma was designed to keep the actors fluid.
So you're kind of following the actors rather than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. So the actors are guiding what's happening.
In terms then of so writer, director, cinematographer, is there a line that you will not cross in terms of doing all those 3 on the one shoot, or is it possible to take on those 3 roles in the same?
It's definitely possible. And it would be I think it'd be fun to do it, but at the moment, I'm kind of going, I still feel like I've got quite a lot to learn in terms of all of those roles. So I'd be one of the most valuable collaborations you have on set is between the director and the cinematographer. And having been on both sides of that divide, I've really seen it for myself that, like, working with the cinematographer, you can generate this kind of energy that you can just bring to everything you do, that when you're on your own it can be possibly harder. And also you've got somebody who you can turn to and kind of discuss things with, and who's completely integral to the filmmaking process. So like, I'm about to go and direct something, and there is a possibility that I could shoot it myself, but I'd be inclined to kind of, especially because it's my first feature film, I'd be inclined to go towards working with somebody who I know is going to bring something magical themselves and have that. Why would I not say, let's get some of that, coming on board.
And working then, like, so when you're working as a director, how do you work? Do you rehearse? What is that process for you?
Well, it depends on the size of the project and the you know what the constraints are. Funny thing is, I mean, I started off making things for very, very little money, so actually you kind of had more freedom there because people were doing it because they wanted to do it, and the money wasn't the motivating factor. So when you've got no money, it actually opens up a lot of doors because you can say, okay, well, we're going to rehearse for the whole week before the shoot or whatever, and you know, or I'm going to, you know, you can do that because people are doing it of their own will. So it's like, are you free? Do you want to do it? You want to do it? Okay, let's do it. And then that's it. But once it's actually paid work and it's on a more professional level, then everybody needs to get paid, and suddenly doing rehearsals costs you money, and getting everybody there, and you know, because suddenly probably your cast aren't coming from all the same place. You're probably getting cast from different places, and so the actual practicalities of it can get much harder as the films get bigger. But the process itself shouldn't really change. I mean, the ideal thing is that, for me anyway, I think, is that you get time with the actors to kind of play with the characters and kind of discover them in a process that's free of the pressure of the shoot. So I did a film called Cluck, and we had a group of kid actors, and what I did was I just got them to hang out together a lot and play games with them, and because in the film they were supposed to be a tightly knit gang, and you can't have a bunch of 5 kids who don't know each other showing up on set on day one and pretending they really care for each other. So just by kind of hanging out with them and giving them kind of smaller exercises of kind of imagining scenes that weren't in the film, and got them to play those, so they had kind of like a backstory or a relationship with each other that they could draw on then when you're playing the scenes.
Mentors along the way in terms of people who have been.
Yeah. Well, in terms of mentors, obviously, like, we had some really great teachers at the National Film School who were great. I mean, I think Anne O'Leary, obviously, who's just retired recently as head of the National Film School, was fantastic. She was the one who kind of said, "Hey, check out cinematography" to me, which was great. So I think, yeah, I had a lot of help there, and then I obviously had Lone Sherfick as an actual mentor. But also I would say that, like, people who were just a few years ahead of me, like, I know that when I went onto film sets for the very first time, I knew nothing about lights, knew nothing about camera, knew nothing about how a film is properly shot, except what I had done myself in my own garage. So, I mean, on those sets, the first few films that I went on to, Tom Comerford was the DOP, and I learned a lot from Tom, because he was experienced and he was really good at what he did and knew so much. So kind of just helping out Tom, like helping him move lights and stuff, I kind of was watching what he was doing and picking up a lot of stuff and also kind of how he treated the people around him and how he worked with them. I was really inspired by that. He's a really good guy.
And how was that? What was that?
Well, I mean, I was on set the very first time. I just wanted to get on set to do anything, and I ended up holding a boom pole. Now, I was supposed to be doing boom up, but the person who was in charge of the sound found out that I hadn't been on set before, so they wouldn't let me hold the boom. So they operated the boom and recorded sound at the same time, and I was only allowed to take notes. So.
And was that, like, I'm completely ignorant to the tech side. Is that, was that just somebody being awkward?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I mean, looking back on it now, I mean, anybody I get on set, I try and give them responsibility rather than take it away from them, because especially if somebody's there and they want to do it, they're doing it for free. I mean, unless you're a moron, you're going to try and do your best and at least give them a shot. That's what I'd say, and see what they've got. But I think we were all inexperienced at the time, so I would say the same of that person. But yeah, I mean, because then they ended up booming and recording sound on their own, which I think is probably quite tricky. I'm not enough of a sound expert to know, but I'm sure if you guide somebody, you can probably do better. I don't know, maybe not. But anyway, I wasn't given the responsibility, and so I was just taking lots of notes, and I was trying to really impress. So I was taking really detailed notes and being very good, and Tom was shooting the film, and while he was shooting the film, they were kind of understaffed, undercrewed. So I would help them move boxes when they were under pressure. We were moving to another place, and I'd say, look, do you want a hand to move the lights? And he'd be like, yeah, cool. So I'd just carry lights, because I saw they were running around. So, and at the end of the shoot, he said to me, thanks for all the help. And I was like, no, it's no problem. I said, look, I was free. I was only taking notes all the time, so it's no problem. And then when his next shoot came along, he asked me if I wanted to be a trainee on the shoot. And I was like, great. So first of all, he had noticed that I had made an effort, and I thought that was really nice. And then second of all, he was really respectful of everybody and tried to empower the people around him, which is something I hope I've taken from him as well, that you try and empower those around you, because when it's happened to me, I've responded, so I think it's the way to do it.
Advice to your 20-year-old self.
What the fuck are you doing? No. Advice to my 20-year-old self.
But
Yeah.
I was trying to think, how would I answer these things? You know,
It's really funny, yeah. Advice to your 20-year-old self. No, it's like, it'd be like, go for it. And I think you know, trust yourself a bit more, because there's things that I've done that I have been slow to do, and I think, you know, because there's this thing like the industry, and there's like a way to do it, and there's all this kind of stuff, and when you kind of get into it, it's so organized that you end up thinking you need permission to do it.
Yeah.
You need somebody ahead of you, somebody bigger than you, somebody with more experience and more responsibility and more power to say, yes, now you can do it, and then you do it. And I don't think that's the way it is anymore. And I think, you know, there's been a couple of times when I've waited too much for permission. So my only other than what I've done, which I'd say, go for it, keep doing what you're doing, because it kind of worked. So it's nice. So I'd be kind of like, yeah, you know, and back yourself and all that kind of stuff, because I think just back yourself. But it's also like, yeah, and take those risks. Don't be afraid of, like, you know, something screwing up, because it's worse not to do it.
The biggest challenge about what you do, what you find most difficult?
The biggest challenge actually is probably, like, when you, as a cinematographer, you're kind of showing up for somebody else, and when you're as a director, you're showing up for the project and stuff. That's all fine. It's probably writing at home is, I think, the hardest thing.
Is that I was chatting to Tom Hall last week, and he said that writing is torture for him. Does that come easily for you?
It's not torture. It's not torture, because it's really rewarding when it's going well. Like the other day, I got locked out of my house, and I ended up going and sitting in a pub and having 2 hot whiskies and writing for the day. And I was rewriting some scenes for 6 hours, and I got some really good stuff, and I came away going, oh wow, that was brilliant, really happy. You know, it's like, it was all the kind of stuff that I've been kind of needing in the script. It's, oh, this is great. So it's not torture. It's not torture, but it's lonely, and it's hard on your own to do it. And I'm a kind of a social animal, and I kind of crave other human beings, even if it's to have an argument with. I prefer bouncing off other people, and the energy that I get when I go, oh, we could do this, and then wait, what happens if that happens? And they go, no, that's stupid, you know, what about this way? And I like that play. So that's why I love working with actors, and, you know, on the day kind of changing the scene, going, oh no, look, what happens if we move it here and we do that? And like, I love that energy, the kind of raw creative energy. But when you're sitting on your own, it's hard kind of to generate that sometimes, because you're just sitting on your own, and you're kind of going, I've looked at this scene how many times, and now I've got to rewrite it again. And there's some for me, there's kind of some fundamental questions that I think, you know, I mean, everybody's got their limitations, and I think as a writer I have my limitations, and it's kind of coming back feeling this is the thing I'm not really good at, and now I'm trying to fix it again, and I'm kind of a bit on my own doing it. That's hard.
And within that then, with like say you have an idea for a story and you have kind of the narrative structure, you have an idea of where that's going. Would just devising that with actors be something that would interest you?
Totally, it really would. But it's a really strange process, that, because what can happen is you can end up having a bunch of fantastic scenes, but they don't mean anything. So it's actually I think it's actually probably the way films should be made. Is that you kind of write something rough and then you improvise it with the actors and you get the scenes. But the thing is, you need to really have a shape of what you're trying to do. Like, I don't know how that process works personally, because I haven't been successful at doing it. I've kind of tried to do it a little bit, and I've done scenes where I've gone, that's an amazing scene, it's a really great scene, but it's a very hard way to build a movie, because it can either feel episodic unless you know what the destination of your movie is when you start. And a big part of the process of what you're talking about kind of seems to me to be that you talk with actors and they generate a character, and then you come up with a story based on these characters that they're generating. But if you don't have a great story, you're going to have quite a limited audience for your film, because it's going to be really interesting characters not really doing much. So my origin point for stories has always been a dream. Like, I have dreams and then I wake up and I go, okay, what the hell is that about? And I'll just write down some aspect of it or something strange from it, usually an image that struck me, and I'll build from that. And what I'll build is I'll build a narrative. I'll build a plot that interests me, like a story that I'm going, oh wow, and imagine if it was there, and imagine if that happened, imagine, oh, that sounds real, and I just get excited about that. And then I go, okay, but who are these people? And I think that's my process at the moment. Now, I'm not saying then I kind of dig in to try and find out who are the people that live in this world that would kind of do these things and behave this way. And that's been kind of how I've done it. And I have sat down with actors before and just generated characters and tried to write something. But I end up having a bunch of stuff that it's really hard to shape afterwards.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit amorphous. And then you kind of look at it and go, is that film worth making? Well, I don't have a really good story. I do have interesting characters, but I don't have a good story. So, now I think I just don't quite know how to do it. I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do. I think it's probably a richer way to do it if you can do it.
Are there filmmakers who do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's is it not Mike Lee? What's his name? Does Mike Lee do it? Mike Lee might do it.
It is Mike Lee. Or is when the Shakes Barley, is that what he does?
Yeah, there's two guys I always mix up, Ken Loach and Mike Lee, and I know one of them does that. Is it Mike Lee? No, Mike Lee. It's Mike Lee who does it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Mike Lee. Yeah. So he does that. He does that, and he makes a lot of films, and he makes them very quickly. So I really admire that process, because he does make some great movies, but he makes some real stinkers as well.
And is co-writing something then? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of something I'd like to get into, but the tricky thing is you have to find somebody who you feel you can really work with. I mean, I'm kind of on the verge of maybe doing that with somebody now, and I think it's probably what I'm a slow writer, and I'm really good at certain aspects of it. I'm really good at plot. I'm really good at making an exciting story with really exciting visuals, and that the visuals tell the story. So you can usually watch any film I've ever written, you can turn off all the sound and you totally get the story. Like the first film I did out of college, Out of the Blue, is 8 minutes long and there's no dialogue. And for me, like, I know Hitchcock used to say, we sit down, we write the script, once we're happy the script is working, then we add the dialogue and then we shoot the movie. And it's because for me film's such a visual medium that, like, and maybe it's because of the training I had at the National Film School, it was quite visually oriented. And so I like a movie that moves, you know,
Yeah.
and a movie that's like not two people sitting down having a conversation at a sink, you know, or and if they are, I want to know there's some action associated with it. Like I like people to be active and doing stuff rather than. Now, having said that, I mean I love Richard Linklater's stuff. I love like there's loads of, but that's
those
it.
kind of
Those kind of movies are amazing, but that's another craft, and it's almost like capturing either reality or capturing a play.
And then I suppose, didn't he, maybe I have this wrong, but doesn't he often improvise the dialogue with, like before sunrise? That was all improvised.
Yeah, that was all improvised. But you look at the structure of the film since, and they've got much better. I mean, the most recent one's an absolutely stunning piece of work. It's the names are so similar. I keep jumping. But whatever the most. No. There's like before sunrise, after sunrise, and then before sunset. Is there something? Before
sunrise, something.
The third one, anyway.
Yeah, the one where they meet in Paris.
You know, the third one is when they have kids and they go to.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
That's
one yet.
that's the best of all. It's utterly stunning. It's so good. It was the best movie I saw that year, without a doubt.
But I suppose then, in that, if he's still working that way, and if he's still working with those two actors, they've probably gotten better at that way.
Totally, and I know that those actors are a big part in generating that material for them. Like they collaborate together, and that's a great. I'm like one of my favorite directors of all time. I know, you know, Ingmar Bergman. Sorry, he wrote the plays, but he worked with the same actors over and over. You know, what he would do is, you know, in the winter months he would put on plays with his drama group, and then in the summer months he'd go out and shoot a film with them as like his time off. You know, but he worked with the actors that he had been working with all the years, so he built those relationships, and he was able to, you know, and he's probably cooking away on the script while they were doing the plays, and then went out in the summertime and shot the films.
Did you see Through a Glass Darkly?
The play recently?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I saw that. Really good.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, really good.
So yeah, those filmmakers then whose kind of work you seek out, he'd be one, or are there?
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's quite a few others. I mean, you're kind of always learning from you know, the masters, as I'd say. So Ingmar Bergman, I think, is the most brilliant student of human relationships, and that's why his films are so good. Yeah, he's brilliant. I really love Woody Allen's films, and Andrei Tarkovsky would be also another. I mean, visually and just kind of the kind of poetic sensibility of Andrei Tarkovsky's films is really, really powerful. Or even something like Stalker. I mean, I think they shot the movie Stalker, and then they had all this big budget, and then the film got destroyed in the baths in the processing, so they had to go back and shoot it again. But they didn't have the same resources, so they had to shoot it without all the paraphernalia that they had in the first version of the film. And it's probably a richer film for it. It's like the way, you know, Jaws, the shark didn't work when they went to shoot it, so they had to use other things to try and convey it. I mean, Stalker's an absolute masterpiece, you know. So I'd look at the films of Andrei Tarkovsky kind of for the poetic qualities and kind of how a film communicates something beyond words, something that you actually can't capture in words, that like you get it in the spaces between the words in a poem, you know, like when you read a poem, it's not like prose where you're kind of, this means this exactly, and you get it's like it's in the spaces between, and the kind of the dissonances and the kind of congruences of the words, where you kind of go, where the strangeness lies, that kind of push your mind and your imagination and your heart to kind of to see something beyond what's in the words. And I think the pictures of Ingmar Bergman, or the pictures of Andrei Tarkovsky, do that. They bring you to a kind of a strange place where you confront something that would be hard to write down on paper.
that then kind of flipping back to when you studied philosophy, have you any sense of how that informs what you do now?
Yeah, and it's kind of it's kind of an ongoing process, because I think what happens is, and I remember reading somebody saying before, for years and years and years I wanted to write, and then eventually I started writing and I realised I had nothing to write about. And I think the thing with filmmaking is you're trying to learn how to make films for years, and you've got this kind of stories that you want to tell and stuff, and then it comes to a point where you're saying, yeah, but what am I really trying to say? And what's the film really communicating? What's the, for want to sound wacky, what's the deeper aspect of what I'm doing? Like, why am I drawn to make films? And it's not about putting nice pictures on the screen. It's not about just telling stories. I mean, that amuse. It's about trying to communicate something, of your soul. Trying to communicate something of your soul, and how you feel about the world, and how you think the world is, and how you think the world might be, and so I mean, I think philosophy, what it does is it gives you a really good structure to ask those questions, that when you come back in as a filmmaker, you can ask those questions of your film and say, is there some consistency here, or is it just a bunch of stuff? Because often you see films and you're like, I might be called out on this, but I watch something like True Detective, and I would go, really impressive, very interesting, this guy quoting Nietzsche all the time, and at the end of it, I don't know what to feel. I mean, I kind of have this impression of like, I have a slight impression of Emperor's New Clothes. That it's like, you get a guy, you get him to spout all this Nietzschean philosophy, and you go, okay, now it's deep. And I don't really know what that show was trying to tell me, I don't really know. I didn't come away with a deeper feeling from it, Now I know people really like it, but I kind of felt a bit hollow, and I felt more hollow for the fact that it spouted all this philosophy and didn't really add up to anything. That's what I felt.
And is that in any way perhaps I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But when you see things that leave you with that feeling, whether it be music or theatre or films, is that anything to do with that person trying to make you feel something or trying to make you think something, and that's kind of what you're reacting against in that way? So when you say you're asking questions, or you're asking questions of what you've just made, as a filmmaker, is it your job kind of just to ask the questions and not to
provide all the answers?
Yeah,
in a way, I would think
it's very basic and probably quite obvious.
Yeah, well. I mean, I think it's. I mean, in asking the question, you're trying to, being honest, you're kind of usually asking questions that you don't know the answer to, and that's why the question's so bloody interesting. I mean, if you know the answer, then I would say don't make the film. But it puts you in this dangerous territory, and I think that's probably where you need to be, where you kind of going, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to try and explore it, and I'm going to kind of dip into it and swim around in it, and confront these questions that I have about whatever it is, and see what I feel, and kind of explore my feelings about it, but also and lay them bare, and try and be honest about it. And it's also, but then when you do that, you find that there's usually other sides to the argument. So if you really want to explore the idea, you've got to present all the arguments, and that really throws it open, and that's the process, you know. So as you're kind of digging into the theme, or you're kind of you know, digging into the character, this is the kind of stuff that comes up. That's kind of what I was talking about with my scene yesterday, you know, was like that, you know, you're trying to explore what's going on in the film. And I think, especially because I start with a dream, which is completely like probably the worst place to start. It's like, what, a dream? It's like, it just completely comes randomly out of your unconscious, that you really don't know what you're going to explore, you know. And then so the first part for me is to say, okay, what's this film asking? What is the theme of this film? What am I instinctively drawn to questioning here? And then I kind of try and find that, and then I try and explore it as honestly as I can.
And just like a stupid question, but like when you're talking about like responding to dreams or things in a subliminal way, it's kind of the same way we respond to music. Maybe does music play a part of your creative process?
Yeah.
And who are those?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the way it usually happens for me is that there's music that belongs in the film, and that I would kind of hear a tune and go, oh God, that's the beginning of the film. Or I would hear a tune and go, oh, that's that scene, there's that scene. Or particularly the end of the film, like just the way music makes you feel, and you hear a song, and you're going, that's how when I hear this song, that's how I should feel when I walk out of this film. You know, and it's really good in that sense, because it's in that kind of poetic space where you can't really put it down in words, but you kind of play the tune to somebody and they get it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like,
So you kind of, there's an understanding that you can't articulate.
Yeah, yeah.
And who are those? Like, are there particular?
Well, with the it's really funny with the film I'm doing at the moment. It seems to be kind of all like female musicians and stuff. So it's like stuff I'm listening to is like Florence the Machine and Sinead O'Connor. They're particularly I kind of have that stuff on a loop at the moment for the film I'm doing, because it's kind of a strong female lead, but there's a couple of songs from those artists that are kind of keep coming back and going, yeah, that's the scene, that's that feeling, you know. And then I just, in general, I kind of, you know, it's nice to write with music in the background, but if you put on the right type of music, it can really help you.
Yeah,
it helps me write.
It's kind of like, final thing. Yeah, if this didn't exist tomorrow and you'd go and do something else, what would that be?
What would it be? Can it be something cool, like be a painter or something?
Of course it can.
Yeah, then I'd be a painter. I thought you meant if I have to do a job that I don't like. It's like, oh man. Yeah, no, I'd be nice to be a painter.
Okay.
Kind of get a buzz at being, or a musician.
Do you paint, or do
I
you
do.
play?
I do. Yeah, I do paint. I do
Okay.
paint. I do, but I haven't done it for a while, and it's now making me go, oh yeah, I should do that for Christmas. Yeah, I mean, I think painting would be probably what I'd like to do if I couldn't, or musician. But I don't know if I have enough skill at either of those to get away with it.
But do you train?
I used to play the piano a lot, but I haven't played for a while. But I bought a electronic keyboard recently, so and my housemate has just emailed me a piece of music from Bach that he's like, oh yeah, you should start with this one. I was like, okay, so.
My brother just bought an organ in the charity shop, so he was like,
great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't know
what's ahead.
Of that,
yeah, but I think it's a really nice thing to do, and even like as a kind of I think it rounds out your day if you can pick up an instrument and play some music.
Yeah. I was at Cullen McNumara in Baker Street.
Oh wow.
Night, and it was just. I think when you see, you know, because there's no words in that music, and when you hear it kind of on CD, particularly when you're listening to, say, Florence and the Machine, you identify whether she's singing, you know, but when you see this in front of you, and suddenly, like, cause it was a 15-piece band.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was beautiful, it was so weird, but I think that's kind of what's arresting about seeing that live, that sort of music live, because suddenly you can see, oh, there's that sound and that you don't really identify when you're just listening.
Of course. It blends in.
Yeah, it was amazing. And that just seems like a very cool set to be involved in, you know, because Glenn Hansard was there and Damien Rice was there and Martin Hayes was there, and we're all kind of jamming.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a good job.
Yeah,
I'll take that one.
That would be a lovely one.
Where can I sign up for that one?
Absolutely. And they're all kind of just pitching in on and they can just
But see, I think that's what happens on a film set when it's really working, is that there's a kind of an energy there that comes in this kind of creative flow that actually just goes back to being a kid. And now it's harder with the big machine because you've got to prepare, but once you're prepared, I think there's room for that if the machine's not too big, you know, that you can actually have this kind of fluidity. And if everybody knows this is how we're going to make this film, you know,
there is that
there can be that kind of, you know, creative buzz of okay,
I'm on.
Exactly. Run with it, you know. And you can, and just because I think you need that, because if you're going on set and you know exactly what's going to happen and you're just going to play it all out, you're already kind of dead. You have to be surprised, you have to be alive in the moment, you have to have it exploding in your fucking brain when you're watching it, and you're going, whoa, wow, okay, you took me to a place that I didn't expect to go, okay, and now somebody's going to get to see it in a cinema and sit and watch what you just did. That's magic. You know, whereas if you're going in going, here's the lines, okay, you said the lines, you said them very well, you shot them very well, you did, it's kind of dead, you know what I mean? It's kind of dead. So it's trying to get that kind of risky energy.
Yes, okay, listen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.